suppose this is as good a time as any to talk about the New Year's stuff. On New Year's Eve, I went to a VRChat meetup. It felt pretty significant to me just because, like, a New Year's meetup was one of the first ever big things like that I did in VR, where my friend Poppin, I had met around the time, and I had also just started messing with VRChat around the time. He was like, oh, you have VRChat? You should come to this big New Year's thing. And not only was the meetup itself a lot of fun, it was fun to I don't know, be around a lot of furries in like a virtual space like that with everyone with their crazy avatars before I had one. It was also, well, I was obviously too nervous to really go up and talk to anybody. It is where I met my friend Quell for the first time. Because he is just a very nice person that is very quick to go up and talk to people that are clearly new. Because he does a lot of VRChat stuff and knows a lot of the people that are there normally. And when there's somebody new, he's like, oh, who are you? Like, especially if they're not really talking to anybody, it's kind of like a, one, who are you? Two, let's help you break you out of your shell if you're feeling weird about being in something like this for the first time. And I didn't end up doing it last year, so getting the chance to do it again this year was kind of like a... One, felt cool just to be there again, because it was in like the same but updated map, where there's like some big, cool New Year's VRChat map where they do like a, you know, quote-unquote ball drop, but they have it like every hour with like a thing talking about the time, or, you know, a thing with like the time zones, like a banner around it that's like, it's this time here, it's this time here, like that kind of thing. And then every hour that would pass, it would go off again, and, you know, especially with a lot of different people there, it would kind of be like, it goes off, and then people are like, yeah, Happy New Year to whoever just had a new year. But it was cool. I don't know. It felt slightly emotional, I suppose, even on my end, of just kind of like, to me, it almost felt, instead of being more of a reflection of like the past year, it almost felt like a reflection of the past 2 years, where it's like, Calif's just been a really good, inspiring friend that I originally met at New Year's. Poppin was one of the people who originally helped me a ton when I first started streaming, like, having me on his stream, sending friends my way, all that kind of stuff. And then just generally speaking, getting very, like, intermixed in both of their communities. So it definitely got me a little extra sappy towards both of them. On top of just everybody being there. I actually didn't end up even talking to, like, a ton of people. I think it was, like, so busy that even all the people I did know, it was hard to, like, set aside time to say hi to all of them. But, at the very least, I got to spend some good time with both of them. It was really nice. Oh! Ah! Actually made it out for once. Wow, look at that timing. And I do have some pictures from that I can show off as well. I actually tried for the first time setting up an automatic screenshotter thing, because it makes it a lot easier to... I don't know, sometimes it can be hard to remember to take pictures all the time, or there's some moments that you wouldn't normally even take a picture of, because you're, like, pretty actively doing something. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, as far as that night. One thing that definitely set things off to a weird start was, with the way that VRChat works, I actually was not sure at first whether or not I was going to be able to, well, whether or not I was going to be able to join anything. Just because I have VRChat set up, like, you can set the instances to be, like, totally private, invite only, or, you know, friends only can join, or friends and friends of friends can join, which is usually the preferred setup, because then it's kind of like a general, like, everyone here should be generally trustworthy kind of group. Like, if you're a friend of a friend, there's always a chance for something to fall through the cracks there, but for the most part, it's very tame. And then, of course, there's public, which you don't. You don't do public, unless you are brave. Or perhaps an edgy child. But it seemed like the big... Like, when I first logged on to VRChat for the day, it was before everybody, like, really started rolling in. Like, my friends list was, like, 0 people online, literally. And then I started to see the number tick up to, like, 7, 8 online, but every single person was in a private instance. And I, like, literally felt my heart sink, like, oh no. Does this actually for real mean that I can't go to, like, the thing that everyone's doing tonight? Because somebody just happened to set up a stupid VR chat room that not many people could go to. But it very quickly turned into, like, at least the people that I knew realizing that that was kind of stupid in how it was set up. Where I just set up my own little, like, Friends Plus instance, just for, like, you know, if people could roll by, whatever, that'd be cool. I'm sure there's at least some people, and... Well, my friend BMO ended up swinging in for a little while, and we talked. And then I did send, like, you know, an invite request to both Kelif and Poppin, being like, can you let me in? You might not actually be able to, but it'd be cool if you could. And I think that's when both of them were like, oh shit, we should probably find a better instance to do here. So Kelif ended up joining mine, and we ended up just kind of, like, chilling and chatting for a little while. Which was nice and cozy. Like, you know, Poppin, or, BMO's still there as well, so we all just kind of, like, hung out for a little while. And then, him being the social one he is, eventually was like, oh, I found a Friends Plus instance that we can all actually go to. And I was like, hell yeah. And then eventually I met up with Poppin there. So in the overall sappy feelings of that night, part of it was definitely the fact that, not only did I really want to meet up with these friends, and it seemed like things were closed off, but as soon as they realized things were closed off, they were like, no, wait. Derek, we want to say hi to you. And that meant a lot. There we go. So this was... this looks like, in retrospect, when I explained that, like, you know, beforehand I was really worried about whether or not I was ever going to get, like, even going to get into a meetup, and had kind of, like, an emotional, like, oh shit, am I even going to be able to do anything for New Year's, because it's a closed-off room and I didn't expect it to be. This looks like a very melodramatic screenshot, but in retrospect, this was before I even, or, you know, in reality, this was just before I even realized what was going on, and I was just hanging out in this world because it's extremely pretty. And I forget what, I think it's just called, like, Station at Dusk or something like that. I could post a link if anyone was curious. But it's just a really pretty world, so I was just kind of messing around, taking pictures. But eventually, I started the Friends Plus instance of the, Apotos, like the Sonic Unleashed first area map. And I actually forget who this pink avatar is here, just because it was a friend of Kelif's and not mine. But it just kind of turned into all of us, like, hanging out on a rooftop, chatting and stuff for a little while. And then BMO was here. That's the avatar BMO usually uses there. So this is what it was at first, where I just kind of, like, went to this world just to be like, I'll just hang out here. If people swing by, that'd be cool. I'd like to say hi to people. And then, thankfully, people swung by. And then it was shortly after that that Kelif found, like, the big New Year's Eve, or, you know, a good, like, Friends Plus meetup for the New Year's Eve stuff. And because it's the same map that they change every year, I guess they almost kind of treat it like you would a convention, where, like, maybe at first it didn't have a theme, but then, like, this year it was ocean themed, so they just took the same map and threw a bunch of, like, ocean stuff all over it. There was this cool, like, graffiti wall where I think you could ask to put, like, a sticker of your thing. There's a lot of, like, neat little areas to explore like that. And then you can kind of see in the back there the, like, banner I was talking about, where it's like, here's New York City time, which is my time, so I guess that's exactly when I took this picture. There's all sorts of, like, billboards and stuff like that, which is cute, but also kind of messy. I guess it added to the vibe, though, of it being like a city with some actual advertisements in it. This is kind of like a, you know, what it looked like for a lot of the night. Just so many people hanging out on balconies, chatting and stuff like that. Like, all along here. It was cool. This isn't a great screenshot. This is like the automatic screenshot taker I was talking about, where like it doesn't always take particularly well framed pictures or anything, but it's at least good enough that it's like I'm catching some more candid vibes that I might have done a bad job of taking a picture of normally. And then this was my ball dropping, so to speak. The, you know, Happy New Year, midnight my time. Wahoo, yeah. And then that was just some really nice pictures. Actually, Kelif managed to take these pictures. I tried to take pictures of the same moment happening, and they came out way worse, so... that was just me hanging out with him for a little while for the night. They came out really good. And that was just more pictures of him, because we hung out a lot throughout the night. Like, chatting in circles and stuff. And then, I didn't get as many pictures of BMO as I thought I did, but I at least got a few at least. And some handful of other friends that I just kind of bumped into through the night. Like I said, I kind of wish I bumped into more people. But I'm glad I got the chance to catch up with a lot of people that I did. And that it ended up being such like a good night to talk to the friends that meant a lot to me. Because it is genuinely hard to understate how much both Poppin and Kelif have changed my life in the past couple of years. Whether it's, like, through their own influence, literally, or, you know, just more directly as people. And I can say that about basically everybody I've met along the way, but they're the ones who have definitely, like, that I keep in touch with the most, that have kickstarted a lot of things more directly, etc. And I definitely made sure to gush to them a bit as well about that, but who knows if I did a good job. I don't know, like, it feels like a hard thing to bring into words when you're actually trying to, like, really thank somebody like that, so... yeah, I don't know. Beyond that, I've obviously just been really thankful that streaming has been a regular part of my life. I have basically never been the type to take it, like, super seriously, like, career move-wise. I'm not, like, a big, like, content creator kind of person. I just kind of treat it like I do, like, the weekly hangout, the weekly night on the town almost kind of thing. For lack of a better way to put it. Like, you know, there was a phase in my life where that was going to weekly tournaments. And that was a lot of fun for its own reasons. And this kind of feels like the same thing, where it's just kind of like a... I really love that I can just kind of sit down and vibe and chat with a bunch of cool people every week that have been a big part of my life for a while now. It is kind of insane to think that I've been doing this for a little over 2 years now. And I, like, really am thankful for everyone that has met along the way. Or everyone that I've met along the way and all my friends that, have just liked hanging out here in general. I don't know if it's, like, cheesy or, air quotes, parasocially weird to say that I think a lot of the people who have swung by my chats and or, you know, swung by and hung out and chat and stuff are people I consider friends. Like, it's hard not to think that way when, you know, at least, especially for the people who have been more active in chat, have just been people that I talk to when I do my weekly hangout every week. Again, at least in the way that I kind of see the way I do this. So, I feel like I've made a lot of great friends. And of course, I always appreciate the lurkers. On top of thinking of it as my own weekly hangout, I just kind of like making it... oh, yep. I'm literally about to say I like making a comfy space for people as the dogs start going insane. 1 second. Alright. Anyway. I like making a comfy space for people. So if people just like sitting by and listening, that means a lot for its own reasons, because when I first started streaming, I think I did a lot of comparing myself to the kinds of, like, YouTube channels and stuff that I liked listening to just for cozy reasons. And I did a lot of, I guess, judging myself by that metric. Like, especially at the time where, like, before I could go back and listen to myself literally speak for hours on end. You know, I always even felt weird about the way that I talked. Like, you know, did I have, like, weird speech patterns that would be weird for even myself to listen to, let alone you know, trying to be there for a bunch of people that want to swing by. And I think that both, you know, again, one, hope that I can actually be that for people, and two, I think actually helped me a lot. Like, just be more confident in myself, like, oh, actually, there's nothing wrong with the way that you are and the way that you talk, etc. And, like, maybe even help me improve on those skills a bit. I definitely do not feel weird talking into the microphone in this way or anything. I don't know. Case in point, just a lot of good stuff that's come out of it. I'm glad that this is exactly when I got to this part of the game that I decided to go on a sentimental ramble. This isn't a super long song, but it's a really sweet song. I like it a lot. So I saw you the other day in California. Yeah, no, that was cute. I didn't know, or I guess I should have assumed at this point that you probably had Kella follow, but I wasn't sure if you did. I think that was the first time I had seen you in there. And then, yeah, he does the awesome, like the VRChat meetup recaps and stuff, where there's a pretty solid chance that I'll at least be in the background for a photo, if I end up being at the same one. Didn't expect it soon to be so sassy, though. I know, I feel like, all things considered, I am a much less openly, like, silly, lewd person than a lot of people in the fandom are. And, I think it's fun. I mean, it's not like I'm not with those people. Maybe less so than people in their friend groups as a whole. It's just something that I'm not, like, the loudest person in general with. Oh, there we go. But it does make it a funny situation where it can be hard for me to... I still recommend their streams, obviously, but also... I've had, like, a couple of friends where I'm like, oh, you're streaming at the same time. Not sure if my audience necessarily wants to raid into this, but... as somebody who is not openly lewd a heck of a lot, I can, like, sometimes feel a little out of place in those circles. But I don't think it, like, literally makes me feel out of place. Like, I'm obviously still really close friends with people that are like that, like Kellef. I know, I mean, it's like borderline normal Twitch stuff. It is very normal to be at least a little bit loud on Twitch. And especially in furry spaces. And I think it's honestly something that made me unsure, like, where I would even necessarily fit in if I, like, kept up with streaming like I did in the long term. But I don't know, the more I stream, the more I realize there are definitely plenty of people who just kind of want something a lot more low-key and conversational. And it's not like I wouldn't even necessarily be, like, willing to have conversations about that kind of thing, although I don't know if I'm maybe a little too deep into my audience being one age or the other. I don't exactly ask people their ages to know how much of my audience is 18 plus versus not 18 plus. But yeah, I don't know. That's definitely a topic I've thought a lot about, all things considered. I think as well, at least part of my decision to not be, like, super loud about lewd stuff with streaming is, a decent amount of my non-furry friends swing by. So when I was first thinking of kind of, like, starting streaming, I was like, one, do I want to make sure it's a welcoming space for, like, everybody, even people who aren't, like, super comfortable around that stuff? And two, would it feel weird to do that or not to do that? And ultimately I decided that, one, I did want it to be kind of a comfy space for everybody. And two, I think being that way all the time isn't really my style no matter what. And even if I could, like, strike more of a balance with it, I don't think I'm losing, like, a big part of me by not delving into it on streams at all. I'm not, like, censoring myself or anything. I've talked about this game a couple times in the past, and it's a very, 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 very cozy game. If it wasn't very obvious by the UI, this is a mobile game first, which is how I initially found it, or I initially played it as a mobile game, and there's like a handful of games in this series that I have on my phone, but this is by far the most interesting one. I actually originally found it because I know the music composer from an old Flash game website I used to go to.
Clutter.
But yeah, maybe I'll even take a second, or I don't know if the website still works. The website that I'm referring to that I used to go to is it was an old Flash game site called original.com. The game designers of this game have nothing to do with that website. The only thing that they have in common is that, well, I guess they have two things in common. One is that the Flash game website used a couple of songs by this same composer who did it, like, I don't know if it was with permission. I think they might have just, like, taken music from, or nice sounding music from sources that they knew for their silly little Flash game site. Outside of the music composer being in common, the only other real thing that they have in common is really just the vibes. Which I think was another one of those like very influential things in my childhood where it was just Flash games generally had a vibe to them. They were usually either silly, goofy, high energy, or they were just like outright evil. Because, you know, I mean, not that there's not still evil things on the internet today, but the early 2000s was certainly its own breed. And it was just a bunch of Flash games that were super cozy like this. So it kind of felt like this weird, in my mind at least, having found it through the composer in that way, almost kind of felt like an extension of that website. Oh yeah, okay, they got some kind of emulator going on here. Let me... Yeah, this is the same old select screen here. I think usually the go-to one I like to show people, because it's also like, if they've heard of this site, they've probably heard of this game. If it works, please work. Hell yeah. Okay, they've got an emulator going for it. Let's make it a little bigger, if it lets me. So, this website is a lot more about just like silly score attack games than it is like, you know, full-on puzzle games or anything. Which is very, you know, early Flash game. But like, I feel like you didn't find much stuff with this vibe back in the day. Ah, fuck. Oh god, I don't usually use the mouse for gaming. This is actually gonna be hard. I bet I could literally do this easier if I set up the gyro on the Switch controller. That's so fucked up. Oh, oh boy. Yeah. Shit. Yep, there we go. And you just keep going at it. I think this is one of the more well-known ones on the site, just because I think it had like the most... one of the more unique games that actually just has a really nice game loop to it. And also the animation's really satisfying, and the sounds are really satisfying, and the music's really cute. Double score. Oh god, the bells get so much smaller too. Double score. Fuck. Let's go back. What's another fun one? We'll show off a few of them. This was another one I remember having a very memorable aesthetic to it. A Dog for All Seasons. Wait, is it space to jump? That's what it is. Okay, hold on, I already fucked up. Wait, do you have to select it after it? No, okay. Like, what a fucking cute idea for a game. And just like a little one-off game at that. And again, this music, I really love this music. Oh, shit, and see, that's where the game gets interesting. But yeah, I think not every song on this site is a winner. And again, I think they just pull them from like random places. But a lot of songs on this website have been like very regular songs on my music playlists, like for like taking walks and stuff for getting dangerously close to 20 years now. This site has just always been really charming to me. Even though I won't have time to finish this final area, I'll at least let it do the voice line.
Is that the time? It goes so fast, doesn't it? We should finish.
But I don't have time to finish. You know what? I'll end the stream on one small story. Which is that when I first played this game, specifically, this one where it does like a little story, at the start of every chapter, there's like a little story thing where like that old man does like a little narration. And the implication is that every time you're like, it's like every chapter you're basically going through his memories, as if it's framed through going through his old stuff. He's like, watch out what you find while you're rummaging around. Like, I don't want to keep looking at these memories. Please stop. And then he's like, you know what? Maybe I should remember the memories. Like, you know. And again, it's a very, very short verse, like the one that we just got. Actually, can we listen to them? I wonder if we can. Are these...
All this clutter.
Oh, it does.
Goodness knows why I kept any of it. One big mess, weighing the place down, don't you think? Once upon a time, I cut my thumb on a rose. Life is thick with little pains that I'm happy to forget. Oh my, this one makes me hark back to my childhood. Our ignorance was bliss. It's not fair of you to rummage through my things. When you're young, you rush to turn over every stone. But you must take time.
Also, I love this voice
Prepare
actor.
for what may be underneath. You poke and you prod, and it
Actually, I'm using a
reminds
controller.
me. And I don't want to be reminded. Please, you must understand. I want my blissful ignorance. You can take all this. I don't care.
Does this do like an actual... Oh.
You
Oh, right.
stuck the shards together to form a mosaic. I begged you not to show me. But I see it now. And I see where she is now.
Sounds a little sad. It is a little sad. Through all the stages, you find little, like paintings and stuff that show kind of his life story, which it doesn't directly focus on. Like, these are the only things you get, like, in game, so to speak, like, when it comes to, like, talking about the story. The rest of it is all implied through paintings you find, where it basically just seems like he went to war, he came back, or, you know, he met his love and then went to war and then came back and, you know, things weren't great, whatever. So it's just kind of him, like, kind of seeing all that again.
It's been so long since I've spoken about all this. Perhaps the picture isn't quite what I thought. The roses. How could I have forgotten them? The truths we spend our lives learning are worth struggling to reclaim.
One level is called Shooting Squad. You sure he comes back? Maybe he was the Shooting Squad. Seems like that kind of story. Love stories that make a point to let you unpack some of the story yourself. I think one thing that this game does super well is that the stages are very good at, like, telling stories sometimes in, like, little subtle ways. I don't know if I know an example off the top of my head. I'm just gonna see if I can, like, see a quick one. Oh, this one's probably good. minefield. This is the picture in the corner here. You know, again, very, very subtle, but it kind of has this implication of like, you know, I'm sacrificing myself, you know, as far as the wife is concerned, like, I'm about to sacrifice myself out to battle, I might never come back, and now I'm left all alone over here. Like, doesn't say any of that, it just shows you a picture and then has stage design that kind of lets you infer from there. And I think that's one of the coolest things that this game does as far as like storytelling goes. Anyway, the small story on my end before I end things for the game, or for the stream, is that when I first played this game, it was when I was in college. And I actually basically perfectly spaced out this game with playing it on the train on the way to school for an entire semester. Which doesn't have much significance in and of itself, but I think the one cool thing that did come from it was that, with the way that this story is paced, like if you heard all of those voice lines, it just felt very, very well spaced out, like I was literally going to this guy's home every day. And then, like, as my semester was wrapping up, he was just kind of, like, starting to wrap up himself. I just kind of had one of those cool, like, life timing moments to it, where it felt slightly more powerful, that it was, like, timed out with something in my life, as I was, like, timing out with, like, my journey with this old guy that we don't know the name of. So, I don't know. Gaming is cool. That's pretty much what I'm saying, I guess. Almost like a TV show in a way. Exactly, yeah. It's like if you watched a TV show about summer vacation, like through the entirety of a summer vacation, and then it ended as soon as summer vacation ended in the show, and it's like, oh, wow, that was weirdly satisfying. As an adorbs squirrel, though, top 10 favorite animals. Oh gosh, thank you. I'm very surprised at how, like, underrepresented they are in the fandom for how, like, adorable and common of an animal they are in real life. You don't see a lot of them, unless you are a squirrel, in which case you end up bumping into, like, all of them. That is what I've learned being a squirrel on the internet. But yeah, I actually don't remember how I initially found this game, like, specifically. Like, I don't know if I stumbled across it somewhere or a friend that showed it to me or whatever. Because I definitely found it, like, around when it came out. And honestly, it was just a very me-coded game, so I think I even had more than one friend tell me about it regardless. As far as, like, at least at this time, my Sona was a lot more fox. You know, it was a fox rather than being a squirrel. Which was my Sona for a really long time, to the point where it started to kind of feel a little outdated. Like, I obviously really like foxes as an animal, but I didn't, like, put a ton of thought into it beyond that. Like, I was just kind of like, oh, I like foxes, they're really pretty. I'm gonna work that into my Sona design, as opposed to when I picked a squirrel in more recent years was something that I, like, put a lot more deliberate thought into, and feels a lot more like a proper decision I made, as opposed to just, it looks cool. Which, like, that's just me. If somebody's Sona is a fox, that's not that's not me saying that that's the reason that they picked it, but that is definitely the reason that I picked it when I was in middle school. So either way, it was a fox game, and beyond that, the whole idea of the game mechanic of changing seasons has always been something that I've had a massive soft spot for. I think just as somebody like myself that is just a sucker for, like, the 4 seasons and kind of, like, how dramatically different they are. Especially growing up in an area that gets, like, the whole 9 yards when it comes to, you know, the summers here are decently warm. The autumns here are very, very orange at their, like, height. Like, full on. Like, I'm in, like, the New England, like, Massachusetts area, so it's like, you know, autumn is very, very colorful here. Winter, we get a lot of snow. So, like, having grown up around the four seasons, I think they just kind of, like, left a big impact on me as something that I really, really love. And just kind of generally liking more. You know, I like a lot of, like, relaxing atmospheric vibes when it comes to my games anyway. My Sona ended up being pretty much spot on the first time, but I ended up with a ton of OCs and other Sonas in between realizing that. That's cool, too. Especially, like, I remember I had, like, a phase of time where I did have, like, a couple of other OC designs that I came up with. And I feel like there was a period of time where I kind of wanted to do, like...
Don't be afraid.
I kind of wanted to do, like, the multi-Sona route, where, like, kind of different Sonas were different parts of me. But I felt like I always had a hard time, like, actually following through on that. So, and, like, one of those old ones was a squirrel. So, like, when I made my new design, it kind of just felt like I was...
Not too close, you'll frighten him.
Ooh.
Let him come to you.
Kind of felt like I was just, like, fusing all my designs together and being like, actually, I think I'll just stick with the one. Sadly, the only seasons my location has is summer hot, summer warm, summer rain, summer hot. Yeah. No, I've always kind of been torn on the idea of, like, on one hand, I really adore living around where, like, the four seasons are as dramatic as they are. I think they're all beautiful in their own way. I like, it kind of gives me, like, a sense of pacing to the year a little bit in a way that I, like, feel like it would be weird to have, like, to live without, because I've never lived outside of this area. On the other hand, I hate winter. I don't know if I'd go so far to say I had, like, full-on, like, SAD, but I feel like as we get into winter, I'm like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. And then I don't think too hard about it. Like, I don't think that much about how it affects my day-to-day. And then we have, like, one day that's above fucking, I don't know, 40 degrees, and I feel like half of my soul come back to me, and I'm like, man, I wish it was warm all the time. So I don't know what that means for, like, my inevitable settling down future, but it always, if only, like, I feel like if I could shave winter down by, like, a month or two, it would be, like, my perfect place to live. The winter just goes on for so long. It's just so, like, soul-sucking after a while. I did that, and funny thing was 90% of my OCs ended up being girls. Be like that sometimes. Funny how, self-exploration to the things that are, like, deep and meaningful to you end up panning out. It's honestly one of the cool things about picking a Fursona, though. Oh yeah, that... I do like the Fursona tangent, but I just realized I didn't actually finish my thought from earlier. The seasonal thing, as far as, like, a mechanic in games. I think because I've always had an attachment to them, definitely the first game that I ever played where it was, like, a big mechanic that felt like a really, really big important part of the game was, Banjo-Kazooie with Click Clock Woods. Where for people who have not played that game, the general context is that it's the same stage 4 times, but you unlock doors to the different seasons as you go on. So, like, you start, I want to say... which one do you start in? I want to say it's spring, but I feel like I'm wrong about that. But yeah, it's the same stage 4 times over, but you unlock doors for each of the seasons as you go along. And it's just this really cool mechanic of... as you go through the stages, like, each stage essentially has stuff locked off behind which season it is. So, like, in the spring, you know, there's some, like, plants that haven't grown all the way yet. In the winter, all of the water is ice. And they even do some things that aren't necessarily about, like, the seasons, but more about just, like, the passage of time. Where, like, there's, like, a tree house that's being built. And in the first season you go to, it's just starting to be built. And then as you go, you know, as you unlock more of the seasons, it's like you see more and more of it getting fleshed out. And I don't know. Just the idea of, like, the seasons changing things so much that, that you kind of have to, like, pay attention to the environment and see what's changing where and how it needs to be changed. Something about that just, like, really clicked with me. And that's like always been one of my favorite stages in like any game ever, which is mostly funny because I, you know, now having internet access as an adult, I find out that it's probably like everyone's least favorite stage. Because if you noticed, I said it was like the same stage 4 times. And that does not, that part did not sit well with a lot of people. But I think the entire idea behind the gimmick of the world changing in subtle ways and you kind of like feeling like you're actually in this place for a full year, to me was like a strong enough idea that I loved exploring each, like I loved exploring the same stage 4 times over because I loved seeing like how it changed and what it meant for like the different goals that you have. And then what was the next? Oh, and then the next big game to do that was Zelda Oracle of Seasons, which, for even reasons beyond the season-changing mechanic, I think Oracle of Seasons has always been one of my favorite Zelda games. Oop, cutscene. I think Banjo probably does it more unique than most games do, but Oracle of Seasons kind of does more similar to this game, where you just have the ability to change the seasons on the fly, so you just have to kind of look at, like, you know, oh, this thing is frozen because it's winter. We gotta change seasons to thaw it out. Oh, we haven't unlocked summer yet. Like,
Just
one
goes to
step at a
show,
time,
you
or
can't
whatever. I
judge
don't
a book
remember how
by
the
its
game
cover.
paces out, but, you know, something like
The
that.
fragment's heading towards the sanctuary.
Long ramble just to say I think season-changing mechanics are really neat. Honestly, the only major issues with them is that it tends not to be the deepest mechanic in the world. Like, it is kind of just like, oh, it's frozen, so I just gotta make it not winter anymore. You know, oh, I need this thing to be alive in autumn or spring, so let me switch to that season. Usually the game will at least design things in a way where you have to make sure you're doing things like in the right order, in the right way to get over a thing, but it's usually still never too complicated. So I think for the most part, the season, like, and in this game too, like, I don't remember this game ever having too many complicated season-related puzzles. But as a vibe thing, as an atmosphere thing, and just conceptually the concept of, like, digging into the 4 seasons, I just think is so, like, cozy and cool and interesting that I just kind of love it all the time
Has the
anyway.
Guardian of Winter told you anything?
To bring the conversation earlier full circle, as far as, like, the both the seasons conversation and also the, like, Sona conversation, I almost feel like, in a way, part of me picking a squirrel is almost like a very seasons-based decision in, like, kind of a funny way. Like, I think I like the idea of a squirrel just
The
because
Guardian of the Fall has finally gone
of how
back to sea.
much, I mean, I guess all animals remind me of nature, but squirrels in particular, I guess just because they're
It will
such a
know the
common
way to the
animal to
lake.
actually see while I'm outside, like taking a walk in the woods or whatever. They're like a very woodsy animal to me. And I feel like they are also an animal that, again, maybe just specifically because I end up seeing them so much, I end up thinking of them when I think of the 4 seasons, just because they do very dramatically different things depending on the time of year. Like, summer and spring, they're mostly just kind of like vibing in the trees, doing their thing, and again, you see them everywhere. But then it's like, oh, 1 second, my partner just came back. What was I saying? Oh yeah, squirrels, 4 seasons. Obviously, the autumn is kind of like their time to shine, so to speak. Like, I feel like that's like, when people think of a season that's like associated with squirrels, they usually think of autumn. So I feel like that's kind of like where that came from for me. Oh, that's not where I wanted to. But then, yeah, I don't know. And then winter, you just kind of see them poking their head out, which apparently they don't hibernate, which is funny because I feel like that's like something you see a lot in media, is squirrels hibernating. That's not real. I don't know why that's like a thing when that's just straight up not true. I guess just because you think of them like finding their acorns and burying them away, that like, oh, they gotta be hibernating with them, but that's like not how that works. Yeah, I don't know. I've always just thought of them as like a cozy little avatar of nature in that way, which is probably why I got so attached to them when picking my Sona. Man, SpongeBob lied to me. I think that was actually, like, funny enough. Whatever, like, post I saw or whatever that was talking about it was specifically, like, saying that. Like, they were like, what the fuck? Why did SpongeBob lie to me like that? I was literally also just talking about, Click Clock Wood from Banjo a second ago, just as far as, like, a season-based game mechanic that I, like, have a soft spot for. And, that stage does that as well, where there's a squirrel character in the stage, and you're basically, like, helping them collect acorns for winter for hibernation. Same reason I chose my deer Sona, kinda. Yeah, they're an animal that's kinda like that, too. I can see that. Again, it's not like all animals don't do something for all 4 seasons, so it feels weird to be like, yeah, this is... Well, I guess depending on the area you live, they have to more or less do that. Areas that live in this... Or animals that live in an area where there's dramatic 4 seasons, they do have to care about the 4 seasons, so obviously they're all doing something different for the seasons. But maybe it's just because squirrels are such like a common animal to see that I more directly associate them with the seasons like that. Because I literally see them living their lives through all 4 of the seasons in a way that I feel like you don't... It's a little harder to see like every animal do, when only so many of them like show their faces to you. Also, they have the big bushy tails. That was also a part of my decision making. Had a very deep attachment to
But at least he
pastoral
likes
folk
you. That's something.
in music, art,
I
folklore, and
promised you,
whatnot.
little seed.
I think that's why I like being
Now
a
you have
deer.
absorbed 2
See
seasons. You
a
can
lot
be
of
open at
deer
any
in
time.
the countryside, so I sort of
Each
associate them with
season is
campfires,
unique and
acoustic,
transforms everything
folk
around it.
instruments. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense,
Don't
honestly.
hesitate to use the power of this.
Part of me almost feels like foxes would have been an animal like that, like a very, like, animal that people think of and they mostly think of nature if they didn't become... Oh! Oops. If they didn't become kind of like, you know, one of like the more default furry species. Because I feel like unless it's in a context like this, I see a fox Sona and I mostly just mostly just think of the furry fandom itself. Should show Caliph the VRC photos you took last night. Oh yeah, hold on. Let me but yeah, this is what Bima was talking about earlier. We literally just kind of did some world hopping in VRChat last night, which was really cozy and it was a ton of fun. That's just something, I mean, I've probably talked with you about that plenty of times, where I just kind of like exploring worlds in VRChat and just taking pictures, like, almost as much as I like going to, like, bigger meetups and stuff. So I just kind of, like, you know, I asked if Bimo had any worlds that he wanted to show me and didn't really have much, so I was like, oh, I've got a ton of favorite worlds saved. And I think we basically went the gauntlet on, like, all of my, like, favorite worlds. Like, there's probably some of the bigger ones that I missed. But started with some of the Sonic Unleashed ones. Unfortunately, I don't have, like, significantly better pictures of this one. I took a couple of, like, goofy pictures. But this world has, like, a lot of really adorable scenic areas to go through. This is one of the hub worlds from Unleashed. And then this is a map that I think I sent you the video of a while back, where it's probably just my favorite map in VRChat, where it's just a really... So what it actually is it's the first nighttime stage from Sonic Unleashed, which means, as opposed to the normal, like the day stages in Sonic Unleashed that are like these really long stretched out stages that you're blasting through as Sonic, these are stages that are meant to be walked through kind of slow as like the Werehog instead. So they actually tend to be like pretty well designed streets, which when you're at eye level just makes for an absolutely gorgeous map to walk through. And also, as you can see, they put a crazy amount of effort into just the lighting, the moonlight, the everything. There's my avatar, vibing in the moonlight. I love all the windows, the balconies. I don't have too many shots of the actual streets in the pictures we took. Gremlin next to the ivy-covered house. This was cute, though, and I didn't actually know this until we walked to the end, where at the end of the map, there's like a big grassy cliffside stretch you can go to, where you can just like look out over the moonlit sea. It's just such a pretty map. I like can't get over it. I want to bring more people to it, literally just to like take a walk. Like virtual walk. Whoa. And then like the lighting has these crazy god rays through everything, which is very noticeable. And the windmill going around. Obviously not in motion in the picture, but there is motion to it. This is another Unleashed hub world that just has like, this is not how it looks in the game. These are just supposed to be buildings, but for some reason they put lights in every single window. That is not how cities look, but it is kind of pretty for its own reasons. This is another one that I took like kind of poor pictures of. I wish I took more pictures of like the main area, but this is an area from near Automata that is another very gorgeous world to walk through. Even if you're not familiar with the game, it's just a very pretty robot amusement park. Like, it's like worn down, but there's still a bunch of like really pretty lights everywhere and whatnot. It's just a nice world. I actually have an old picture I was looking at earlier of this world that I took, which I might even bring up later. That kind of shows off the vibes better. This is another near world that is very impactful when you're in VR. Because this is very enormous. I feel like you get a much better sense of scale, like, from the first-person perspective. That scale looks great. Yeah, exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth, but with some internet lag. So, you probably actually said that before I did. But it is very intense to look down, like, no matter where you're standing on this map, and I really love it. And it's just pretty, like, the colors are pretty. And then we spent a decent amount of time in the Banjo-Kazooie worlds. Because this map... So, this is all one map, where somebody has basically just, like, one-to-one recreated every single area in Banjo-Kazooie. Up to and including, like... Every time you go through a door, it does, like, the puzzle piece transition. Like, the screen goes black, and then it, like, undoes the puzzle piece transition. And yeah, you can explore the entirety of the, you can explore the entirety of the lair and get to the stages how you normally get to the stages. Or, they give you a level select, like you start in Banjo's house and you can kind of just jump to whatever level you want. And they have one for Banjo-Tooie as well, although last I saw it wasn't finished. It might be finished by now. I would love if it was finished, though, because I'd really like to... There's a couple of stages in that game in particular that are, like, later game that I love the idea of exploring in first person. Yeah, this is... I don't even remember taking that picture, honestly. But this one's fun, because this stage is, like, a big mountain in the middle, where there's a lighthouse at the top, so it's fun to, like, get all the way to the top and look down. Tried to frame a shot of inside the shell. Sledding. Unfortunately, the sled does not work. We tried. But it does let you sit in it, which is very funny for pictures. Some Christmas time. And then, I guess honestly bringing things full circle, if you're not familiar, the last stage of Banjo-Kazooie is like a season-changing gimmick as well, where there's a version of the same stage with all 4 seasons in mind. We didn't go into fall or spring, but we did go into summer and winter. And this is what it looks like in the summer. This is like an unfinished house that you can find. This is me standing in front of the squirrel character's house from Home Sweet Home. I don't know why I didn't take any pictures in the house. And this is the same map, and in the winter. I really like this picture. This is probably one of my favorites that I took. who was Banjo and who was Kazooie. I literally made that joke like when we went into the map. I was like, hey, look at us. We're a duo of cartoon animals going on a platforming adventure. Unfortunately, neither of us can fly, so I guess we were both Banjo? And then this was a funny moment that we didn't realize until way later, and I'm actually curious if it's just this map or if it's every single map that's in, like, you know, if it's this stage or every single stage in this map, where we figured out that you can, like, grip onto the walls. So any part of this tree, you can do, like, like, where you, like, squeeze your hand together to grab, like, a ledge or a surface or something. You can straight up scale all of this. And I just caught Emo, like, messing around all the way up here. Oh, ooh, where am I? Some blurry UFO footage of Bimo climbing a tree. It did feel quite squirrel, quite forest critter, to be, like, literally, like, gripping onto the edge of the tree and, like, trying to scale up to, like, any of the higher platforms. Also very exhausting on the arms. I would not have done what Bimo did, because Bimo's on desktop, where you can just kind of, like, mash buttons to climb like this. In VR, you literally have to, like, one hand at a time, like, eh, 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 eh. And it is very slow and actually tiring on the arms. It's, like, almost feels like a weirdly good workout in a way that's kind of cute. Again, especially when you're a forest critter climbing up a tree. The Bimo truth is out there. And then this is the only non-video game map we went to, which is just kind of one of my favorite, like, chill maps. I know this map. Oh, nice. We didn't go to this, did we? No, this was on New Year's. I posted up here for a little bit before I realized what everybody was doing. And then after a little bit, I just changed over to the map that we met on. We didn't go to it, but I saved it after you told me about it. Nice. Yeah, this map is so pretty. I really like it. I don't know what inspired me to take this picture. I think it's actually because I left the flying camera here by accident, but then I was like, ooh, that's kind of a nice picture. Wow. I actually didn't notice that. That's kind of funny. And then this felt like a vibe at the last second. This is like basically right before we stopped playing. What's Bimo gonna get? From all of these labels that I promise you can't even read, even if you're face to face with them. And then let me see if I can find real quick that super old picture with my old avatar of that near world. There we go. I say my old avatar, but realistically it was just a public avatar that I liked a lot, so I saved it and started using it. This is kind of more what, like, the vibes of this world are like. Oh, that's a good picture. Look at that. And then that's me and Landfill. Landfill's still using the same avatar, actually, to this day. I can't find this avatar anymore, which sucks. I wish I could still use it, even just for nostalgia's sake. Flashback to the first avatar I saw Derek in. Yeah. I had a funny moment earlier, because me and Bimo were talking about, like, that New Year's night where we had initially met each other, and just, you know, in general, I obviously did take some pictures of it while we were there. And there's one picture. Where is it? Oh, that was actually before we went to the VR meetup. Or for the New Year's meetup. This picture where not only are you pretty front and center in the picture here, but wouldn't you know it? Oh, whoop. Look who's hiding behind... I don't know who this is. I didn't actually take a ton of pictures that night, unfortunately, but I at least have... There's another review. No BMO in this picture, but we do have Poppin. In the very old avatar that he now has a newer version of.